And welcome to the Mise-en-Scene Weekly podcast, where we harken back to our college debate days and pick two movies of the same theme to clash like Magic and Bird, or the Lakers and the Celtics. This week's episode is focused on Jack Nicholson movies we have somehow missed along the way, and making up for it with an unbridled embrace. A nice little hug, a warm one, possibly. Maybe not in this case. Come join Jonathan and Steven for another week of desirably less plot chatter and hopefully more film banter. We are Scene Weekly, and welcome to our world. Episode
Welcome.
12.
Yeah, episode 12. We've made it to almost a baker's dozen. I don't know if you've noticed this, Jonathan, but I'm upgraded.
I have noticed. What have you upgraded?
Well, a few things. I've upgraded my drinking habits to coconut water. I don't know what brand this is. C2O. Maybe they could sponsor us. But it was a gas station buy.
C2O is okay, but in my strong recommendation for somebody that actually has lived in Hawaii, not I, but you.
Yes.
White Cocoa is by far the best. They have two brands, or I think two kinds. They have one that doesn't have the pulp, and they have a second one that does. They're both delectable, depending on pulp desires. But go get a White Cocoa. I actually drink it after each long run and each workout I do, so 3 days a week. It's delectable.
Where can I find these White Cocos?
Online. That's how I get them.
Okay.
So probably not at your gas station. I've never seen it at a gas. Maybe in a Maui gas station, possibly.
Possibly, yeah. Well, other things that I have upgraded, as you can clearly see, I got a new microphone, so hopefully I sound substantially better. Yes.
You do. Yeah, you still sound terrible, but you do sound better than your terrible last week. Yeah.
That's good. See, it's just moving. It's progress, Jonathan.
You appear to have cut your hair.
No, it's the same haircut. It grows a little bit slowly.
I think it was vastly different than last week. I mean, last week I feel like you had long, flowing blonde hair, and I don't see that anymore.
Right. I was kicked off the tour, and I had to cut my hair. So
interesting, because last time you were the guy who was kicking people off tours, and now you're just like getting kicked off yourself. That's a rough go. Part of the business, though.
It's part of the business, man. You got to get used to it.
11.
But we're here. We're set up. We're going to be talking about a couple of classic movies. We titled this episode "You Don't Know Jack," and that's because these are two films starring Jack Nicholson, and we haven't seen them before. These were two blind spots of ours.
Vice versa. So I don't know how we got here, but basically, I think it was in reference to. Chinatown. Maybe weeks or months ago. I don't even know at this point. But you're like, Chinatown this, Chinatown that. I was like, I actually haven't seen Chinatown ever. And for whatever it's worth, first of all, I love Jack Nicholson, like significantly. People would immediately debate that point by saying one of his greatest movies ever, in my opinion, after watching it. And I haven't seen it. But come to find out, you haven't seen The Shining either. And I was like, you don't know Jack we got to do this. We got to know Jack a little more intimately, right?
And I'm glad I did, because I feel like I am very, very much more well versed in his acting chops. I mean, he was chewing some scenery, which we'll get to in my movie. But yeah, it was a mind blowing performance, and it just made me appreciate him that much more. What was your first introduction to Jack Nicholson as a movie viewer?
Oh, God. Man, it might be Batman when I was like 8.
That was mine, yeah. As the Joker.
The first Batman movie, that is. Yeah, probably would have been that. And one in which, by the way, I think 1974 was Chinatown.
Yeah, I think so.
And then in basically a 2-year period, he put out speaking of acting chops and chewing on scenery, he put out this and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and just a few years later throws down on The Shining in 1980, and even in like just crushing somewhat similar roles to some extent in terms of requiring extremely good acting chops in terms of his excessiveness and excitement. Or
Madness.
there's definitely a craze to Jack Nicholson that I don't think anyone else has. He might actually be a maniac.
I was thinking about this, especially when I watched these two performances, and you have like kind of Jack Light and you have Jack Heavy, like very
Yeah,
very different performances, but he pulls it off so well.
it's I actually went to like his IMDb page just to see exactly what he's done, and you think, or at least I did initially think of taking out, notwithstanding like the like Batman. I forgot a lot of his roles, like As Good as It Gets, and
Yeah,
just like even though I think he actually won a Best Supporting or Best Actor for that as well, but like he has just absolutely destroyed Hollywood. Few Good Men,
a few good men. You can't
yeah,
handle the truth. Yeah, I
just
mean,
outstanding, and
he
just
has some of
lines.
he has some of the most iconic lines in film history.
Yeah, and I want to get into two things. One in which I'll give you. I think I should go first because it'll make more sense for The Shining to go second. I'm to be abundantly clear. I knew absolutely nothing on Chinatown. Literally, I don't
Good.
know how my entire existence has overlooked Chinatown and movie watching going since I don't know. I started watching movies when I was a wee young lad.
My question is why? Because I have a reason for mine in The Shining, but why have you missed Chinatown? Like, what? Why is that something that's just been off your radar?
I was just thinking of Big Trouble in Little China, and I saw that. So why would I have to watch Chinatown?
Completely different.
I mean, China is in the name, but yeah, Chinatown was used more of a just euphemistically, I guess, to some extent. Like, don't worry about over there, you know,
That's
not
Chinatown.
Chinatown. Yeah, not Chinatown
Yeah.
in particular, but yeah, I don't know. I often go through phases where I like an actor, actress, and I'll just watch everything that they've done, such as Pedro as a director, Pedro Almodovar, and Gael Garcia Bernal. Like, just watch everything. And I love Jack, and I love the stories that Jack has, which I'll get to actually later. Which is one of my favorite things in life about him is his friendly embrace. And if you dare touch any stories about Hunter S. Thompson, I'm going to kick your ass before this even starts. So I
Oh
will
no,
handle that.
I don't have any of
Yeah,
those stories. So
good.
I'm ready to be tucked into bed with your stories of Hunter S. Thompson.
Oh, it's not tucked into bed. It's the opposite. But we'll get there. I just
Okay.
love the fact that we have Shure mics and we sound better. We don't sound like, we're echoing significantly.
We don't sound better like we're more knowledgeable. We just sound better.
No, both. It's a
Both.
definite both. Yeah, yeah, cuz it's like
Okay.
if you put what is it the quote, if you put some lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig in lipstick, but the pig looks a little better.
It's the whole reason I wear glasses, Jonathan, just to look a little bit smarter. Just a tad.
Do you still do you still think that works with people that are over the age of like 7, 6? Like, or do you
that
just hang out with 6 and 7 year olds?
that's kind
I'm,
of it. Yeah, I
he
just
is
need to
so smart.
I
Look at him in his glasses.
need to have that respect, you know?
Yeah, Jesus, what is happening? The people in your restaurant. Oh, he is Steven. He is so smart. Look at him with his glasses, doing things with. Anyway, Chinatown. Let me give you the breakdown here. I'll give you my own breakdown after I give the synopsis, but it's 131 minutes. Feels like I don't know, 6. It was just so fast. And again, my ignorance is going to shine like a bright light. And I will try to call out my ignorance here. But Roman Polanski actually directed it. Had no idea when like his name is on the credits. Like, had zero clue at the very beginning. That is, but of course you could tell it's Polanski as you continue watching movies. For example, I am strangely addicted to Ninth Gate. Like, actually think it's one of his best movies, which is going to be a huge debate point for anyone watching this, or even you and any human being. 1974 is released. It's rated R, neo noir mystery, and boy, isn't a mystery. It's just a one of I think one of the top 10 mysteries that you could pretty much put on pen to paper for any film. 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. Pretty much can't get much better as a movie. I would say it's. I'd have to go through my top 25 list again, but this may kick out one in the top 25. It's that good. 8.1 on IMDb, 6 million budget, 29 box office. None of that makes any difference whatsoever, but it is a fantastic, fantastic film. And I would tell my former self, you're an idiot and go watch it. But the synopsis is this. When LA Private Eye, Jake Geddes, who's Jack Nicholson, is hired by Evelyn Mulray, or so he thinks, to investigate her husband's activities, he believes it's a routine infidelity case, which is probably very typical, I would imagine, as a PI. And Jake's investigation soon becomes anything but routine when he meets the real Mrs. Mulray, who is Faye Dunaway, and realizes he was hired by an imposter. I love like that. This is set in, I think, 1937. The setting for almost all movies set in that time or movies in that time, huge fan, massive fan of anything touching upon noir, film noir. And Mr. Mulray's sudden death sets Geddes up in a tangled trail of corruption, to say the least, deceit, and a sinister family secrets as Evelyn's father becomes a suspect in the case. That doesn't really give you too much clarity. And to be honest with you, after I watched it, I was like, I feel like I need to go back and watch this at least 7 more times. Not to say that I was confused by the macro level, but definitely I have missed a significant portion of things. And also, I feel like I could sit for days and watch Polanski and how way he frames things. It was one of the most attractive movies I've ever encountered. Full stop.
The dude knows how to direct. The dude knows how to direct.
Unbelievable.
First off, before we kind of break open the dam of information here, we have to set up. I have to ask you this question: How are you about separating art from the artist?
It's a good question. So I'm extremely good at it. So much so that, well, I might be seen as a bad person, I guess, to some extent. I can certainly separate Polanski and anything that he's done in his personal life, or even like a Woody Allen and like him directing. Was it like Vicky Vini Barcelona? I can't remember the name of it.
Vicky
Like,
Cristina Barcelona, yeah.
yeah. Fantastic film. I'm not saying I condone or I support Polanski and his efforts. I think it's in 1977 where he raped a 13-year-old, but and has not been sent back to the U.S. or he's basically been in France ever since. And the individuals who've been associated with this film since, I don't want to say I don't care, but like I definitely can compartmentalize an art from the artist itself, for sure.
Yeah. I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, yeah, it's not just one man working on this film. There's hundreds and hundreds of people that create this masterpiece of a film.
Yeah.
And to appreciate it doesn't mean that we have to celebrate the personal life of the creator, because we're not doing that. And I think it's needed to say it in this podcast because we are going to be talking about certain themes in this movie that kind of harken to his personal life. But we can get back into the film. I just wanted to kind of bring that up.
No, it makes sense. I mean, if Rob Zombie went and killed like 700,000, no, like 12 individuals, I could still watch his horror flicks and be like, wow, this is probably even more horrific when watching. But I can certainly separate. I mean, if you weren't, I watched a Neil Brennan special this past week. I think it came out April 9th. It's on Netflix. Really, really good. Definitely his best work by far. And he had basically a quote to say like all comedians, they're one of two, either psychopaths, basically like a little bit of Asperger's. I like to have in my friends and people around me, just a little bit, but not too much.
Just a sprinkle. Just a sprinkle.
Sometimes if you take it too far, you've got Kanye. But he was saying that basically you have psychopaths and drug addicts. Mitch Hedberg, and he lists in a sundry of comedians who are one or the other. And he's like, that's pretty much us. Like anyone who's willing to get on stage and just got get the shit kicked out of them for this long period of time, um, they deserve my support. I don't know where I was going with that, but nonetheless, I think that's actors, that's directors to some extent, and I think there are probably some drug addicts and psychopaths intermingled between the groups here. And sometimes you get that touch of Asperger's, like Polanski, and they do bad things, but on the whole, they can create a movie like Chinatown, which is terrific. I just want to start off. I can't, like, this blew me away so much that I took a picture of it and I've been staring at it, and I just, this shot is so slick. I don't know how I'm gonna actually show this.
Just text it to me, and I can pull it up on my
Okay, so we
WhatsApp.
can actually, I'll text it to you, but basically, I'll try to describe it, and since the picture is going to be up, but there's a watching, if you will, and in the background, basically, you have somebody who appears to be surveying a scene, and in that there is a mirror to a car where somebody is inspecting following somebody as a private investigator would.
Right.
There's a gate open, but on the left side, you can actually see, typical woods. It looks like a fairly nice neighborhood. There's a sidewalk, but on the right side, it's more of an illuminated side where there are trees, a little dark on the left, and in the middle, there's this mirror with like downtrodden trees, almost like a tornado has gone through with an open gate. And the metaphors here, I mean, are completely ripe. But this shot alone, at 10 minutes and 4 seconds, I was just like, this is going to be a good movie. I mean, even before that, I was like, but this shot selection that he has chosen, and all throughout. And I love scenes that have mirrors or reflections or anything along those lines. Big fan. But I don't want to stop the discussion, but throughout, I literally stopped it, and Sonia, my wife, just would walk away and was like, I'm tired of watching this with you because you stop it all the time. And that's that's the whole reason we started this podcast, so we would have somebody to talk to, basically.
Yeah, we would want to watch movies and talk about it and kind
And
of get your feedback. Yeah.
I actually feel it's backfired in the sense of now where I was talking about fairly simplistic things. Now I'm talking about even more in-depth things like, oh, look at the lighting on the left side of this. Look versus it's like a yin and yang. And she's like, get the fuck out of here with this shit, basically. But his mise-en-scene and his framing is top notch. And to be frank, I don't know what he did before this, but it was written. The screenplay was written by Robert Towne, who also did actually Without Limits, The
I
Firm,
saw that. I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
Days of Thunder, and Bonnie and Clyde. Now I don't know how much he did with the writing on Bonnie and Clyde, if he was the sole writer, but he did have credits there. But interesting movies in his collection of movies, and lots of discrepancies on who should be playing roles. I think Robert Towne actually wrote the role for Jack, and then Jack had his ideas on who should be in the scenes on both movies, actually, for The Shining and this. So there's a lot of infighting that actually was that existed between who was going to have these particular roles. But nonetheless, private investigator, just trying to get down to brass tacks, and ultimately cool as a cucumber. But I really want to point out for one fact that I didn't really notice for whatever reason until, I don't know, fairly late in the film. Jack's in every scene. Jack Nicholson, every scene.
He does. Yeah, he is. I didn't even think about that.
He's literally in every single scene. So I'm getting well ahead of myself, but it's just plot. So it doesn't matter. At the very end where he's staring for, we've got five, like basically where everyone's trying to get him out of that situation. And that, I think it's not only that, but it's like the kind of like culmination of the movie on him, of like working 14-hour days or 16-hour days and just being completely wrecked. I feel like it was a culmination of real life occurrences, and him just being done with being a private investigator, basically, of just all hell breaking loose. But what a performance overall! One of my favorite performances I've ever seen for any actor.
No, it was fantastic. The way he played it, the way that he's I mean, he's the hero of this film. He's the protagonist, obviously, but he's the one that we follow. I love how the director would frame it where we get a lot of shots behind Jack's head,
Yeah,
And it kind of gives us this feeling that, we are
we are
we're in the same
Jack.
boat. We're in the same boat as him. We have no idea what's unfolding in this onion of a mystery, and it just keep one layer after one layer after one layer, and we're just kind of getting fed this information at the same time he is, and we might think we know something, but we really don't.
Yeah, that was the whole crux of why Polanski actually shot it in that way, so that the audience would actually know to a T exactly what um, the private investigator knew, which I found fascinating because it did give that feeling, like quite literally, like it was more so than in any other, maybe any other film I've ever seen. But I think that's, he was the main character, or is the main character of the film, and you are behind him, and you don't even really feel like the audience. You kind of start to feel like him, like you're
Yeah,
just rooting for him because he's always on the scene. So either I guess you're going to be annoyed by him, or going to have to just embrace it. But what an impeccably dressed human being, by the way. Like every single scene, every single shot, I was just like, he continued on, and it went from suit after suit. And I just feel like if you were to go to Chinatown in this 1937 era, you could probably get suits like this if I
oh,
had to guess.
100%. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It,
It made me think, of in 2000, in 2006, I moved to Korea, and then I spent 6 months basically just hanging out in Korea. I was writing a book and watching lots of Korean films, not really doing anything else other than that, and teaching. And then in 2007, I started traveling a significant amount more, probably because Milton Mikey joined me. But in doing so, I traveled to Thailand, which is hilarious now that I think about it, because in Thailand, I can't remember exactly where I was, like the actual town itself, but I was near Phuket, and I went basically to the local like tailor, and I wanted two suits. I wanted a black suit and I wanted a gray suit, which is absolutely hysterical because what actually was provided, and I hope I can provide you with a picture so that we can do a side by side
yeah,
here, which is going to be great. But I basically showed up, gave $200, and I said, they got suited and booted, whatnot, got fitted, came back a few days later, and they had produced these suits for me. But the funniest part of this is the fact that, and this is like 35 minutes, I think, that you see the first like gray suit that he has, which is literally identical. So I would wear that gray suit all the time. You probably have seen me wear the gray suit. You've definitely seen it in like a LinkedIn picture. But it ultimately looked, after about 10 years of wearing it, it looked old. I guarantee you, whoever the owner of that Thai shop was like a fan of Chinatown. And like, I just went in and I was like, I need a black and gray suit. And like, we got you, white boy. And so they literally went back and gave me Jack Nicholson suits, like two identical suits to Chinatown. So 35 minutes, you see his gray suit, my suit, or his suit. And then just after that, I was like, oh, this is fantastic. And at 50 minutes, so 15 minutes later, he changes into a black suit. I was like, that's exactly my suit as well, black suit. So if we could do a side by side, I think it'll be fantastic. But I ultimately call this like the Chinatown double cross, because somebody in Thailand definitely enjoyed watching Jack in Chinatown and decided to make old white boy some two suits that look identical to Jack's, which
I
makes
love that.
sense.
People don't wear suits as much nowadays. I feel like it's especially, I mean, in the New York area, yes. I mean, it's kind of a suit central place, but I feel like in the business world, it's very more casual.
Yeah, but I mean, the not to get into the details, I think everyone here honestly should write it. I write it, should watch this movie. It's really an unbelievable thrill of just following people and just doing private investigator work, and like character. I can't remember his name, but was it Bert from Young Rocky? I can't remember his name, but just the characters, the small characters that show up throughout the film are very surprising too. Um, but Polanski's ability to frame different shots and use, and I don't know how often like he asked Faye and Jack to actually rehearse or redo lines, but it feels like everything was just like running on all cylinders.
Yeah, it was a
However
smooth
many cylinders
operation.
they had.
I came to this film when I was in film school, undergrad, and I took a film noir class. And you start off with film noir in the early days, and you're watching Double Indemnity and Maltese Falcon and things like that. And then
Yeah.
slowly but surely you get into the 70s, and this is when I was introduced to Chinatown. And I remember it was our, like, how like science, you have like lab hour. Well, in film
Yeah.
school, you have lab hour, but it's going to this like small little cinema on campus, and you have like I watched this movie at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday or something like that. But it was a great movie watching experience. But what I picked up from this is like all of, like, rewatching it too, all of the things that they do to kind of like flip the pay homage to the film noir, but also flip it on his head. Like, very first scene in the movie, you're in the office with JJ Giddies, and he's like, "I just got these Venetian blinds put in." And what's a big film trope of film noir is these Venetian blinds. So they're like, these new Venetian blinds is kind of like, this is going to be a neo noir, right? And it kind of just sets
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
stage up for that. You also have you have the femme fatale and Faye Dunaway. It's kind of a twist on the femme fatale. You have my favorite thing is in film noir is you have a hard nosed detective, but we find out that Jake has a soft nose because he's wearing a bandage throughout half the film. And it's all these like little plays on the film noir, but keeping it really still in that film noir zone. Like, film noir is also known, came out with black and white photography, and this is just so bright and so light, but you still have a lot of those shadows and things like that playing with it. So I love the interplay between the homage to film noir and making it a new film noir.
I love the fact that you can smoke in an establishment. You ever smoked in like just like a restaurant,
I
like
remember
just
when I was a
A
kid
Frenchman?
having the you go to a restaurant with your parents, and they ask you smoking or non-smoking. And before, like when I was a kid, there was like no barriers. It was just kind of separated,
Open. Yeah.
open. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
like a few years later, they started putting up like glass barriers and whatnot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now there's no such thing as smoking or non-smoking.
Did your family ever sit in the smoking section when the non-smoking section was full?
I can't speak 100%, but I am 95% sure that they said no, because my parents were former smokers, and they just detested the smell after quitting. So it was just something that they just had to put aside.
The people, my mom thought people that smoked were just like the excrement, the plebes of the earth, the just like whatever description you could provide for individuals who smoked back then for me is pretty much what I believed. And I thought smoking was just whatever, for whatever it's worth, was the worst thing in the world. And so like a restaurant that even had the ability to have a smoking section was, according to my mom, um, not good to say the least. And so we've had the opportunity a few times where the restaurant was booked and we're like, nope, we're not gonna sit.
Yeah, we're gonna go somewhere
But it's an
else.
interesting thing. It's nice. It's interesting to see it though in movies. It's pretty fascinating. Other than smoking in front of your children, that's a little weird. But um, just overall, I mean, it's what a mixture of good sound, a mixture of just intensity, and progressing through this weird emotional roller coaster of like you think you have got this movie figured out, and I think that's why that it's shot from the back, so you're seeing it like a first person detective story, and like you're believing what's in front of you, but everything gets upended. You know, the Morwell situation ends up not being her, and the very end basically, not to I really don't want to go into too much of the plot, to be fair, because I feel like it's such a celebration of film that you should probably just watch it yourself. But the ending is Jack just being crushed by life, being crushed by his own existence, and needing time away, I think, from his job. But do you think that you could actually replicate this film now, or like who would be like a best director to shoot this? Because I actually have my own answer, but I don't know if it's a good answer, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, but
Yeah, it's kind of on the spot, but it's
I can
I
I
could
can go first
see.
then. Okay.
I mean, I'm kind of pulling back to a director of that time who's still making movies today, but I could see Scorsese trying to do something like this, because he has those kind of
Yeah.
chops of the underbelly of America, and um, he works with these great actors and Robert De Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio, and I think he could direct something like that. Now, me thinking of like a newer director, I would have to sit and think on that. What about you?
This is probably not the answer that anyone's going to think of, or maybe even yourself. But in his own way, I want to see Wes Anderson do a film noir flick because I think that would be excellent.
That
I wouldn't say though in I'd have to like frame this a little better than what I'm just saying to say Wes Anderson. There are parts to Wes Anderson I would like to be removed, but I think that there are parts of Wes Anderson's ability to make movies and frame that is would be impeccable with a film noir flick. Just would be absolutely terrific, especially like the leading character, femme fatale. She would just I think would be stunning and excellent. And then of course the main character, like a Benedict, would do terrific as well. As like a, I mean, he has his own choice. Even Owen Wilson would be super fun and playful.
Yeah, it would be a weird take on a
It'd
film
be
noir.
weird,
It'd be kind of quirky, I feel like, but it would
of
be
course.
also very the cinematography, with Wes Anderson being Wes Anderson, very meticulous attention to detail and very like just symmetrical. But it would be interesting. I would watch that movie.
Think of him doing like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Imagine like
Yeah,
that movie with Wes Anderson did it.
I could imagine a lot of stop motion that he could bring to that.
Yeah, yeah,
Which,
yeah.
but yeah, that's a good question. Another just point of moving this Chinatown story forward is John Huston, the Noah Cross. I felt like his performance was amazing as well. He was right up there with Jack. Like he was this presence in the film that just. I mean, I have a clip to play, and it's the first interaction with Jack and Noah Cross, and I found it immensely fun to watch. Would you like to listen?
Mm, yeah, I would love to.
It is. You're dealing with a disturbed woman who just lost her husband. I don't want her taken advantage of. Sit down.
What for?
You may think you know what you're dealing with, but believe me, you don't. Why is that funny?
It's what the district attorney used to tell me in Chinatown.
Yeah? Was he right? Exactly what do you know about me? Sit down.
Mainly that you're rich and too respectable to want your name in the newspapers.
Of course I'm respectable. I'm old. Politicians, ugly buildings, and whores all get respectable if they last long enough.
That interaction
True,
between the
right?
two, it was like I was on the edge of my seat because he has all the power. Noah Cross has all the power in
Yeah.
this position. He knows what's going on. He knows what he did, and he knows that Gittes is in the dark. And I love the fact that he doesn't pronounce his name correctly at all. He calls him Gitz,
And
and it is
nothing is going to stop him,
nothing is going to.
or so he thinks. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it was.
It's actually this reminds me of something that I wanted to talk about actually. In that scene, um, I think you can hear. I mean, there was some back and forth, some feedback, but like that scene in and of itself, I actually had an idea that I also read. Oh, what is it called? So I read David Byrne's "How Music Works" recently. Unbelievable book. First of all, the creator of Talking Heads and lead
Yeah.
singer, he is one of my idols, and I'm a huge Talking Heads fan. But with that said, I read this book. He was talking about sprinkle of Asperger's in his own self, and he was talking about in film how if you want to set the scene, for example, and have like the sound evoke images in your head or feeling, whatever that might be, you don't really need much. You don't really need much at all. So as long as you get like the framing right of like the cinematography and things of that nature, you can actually, in one scene, for example, if you wanted to have a nighttime scene and you wanted to evoke the feeling of it being night or dusk, I should say, all you need is one simple cricket, and then that one simple cricket added to the flavor of the way you've shot it. It's nighttime, and you feel it's nighttime. You could even think it's nighttime by closing your eyes. You don't even have to see anything. And I feel like that this movie evoked that idea in throughout the simple, I don't, not ideologies, but like simple notions of the use of audio throughout, and evoked a particular feeling with me, which I appreciated very much so. But
Yeah,
I
I
have a
agree.
question. And
Go
by the way,
ahead.
one of my favorite quotes by Noah, it was at the very end of the movie where he said, and I agree with, and I have a question for you in regards to this. But he's a bad guy. Jack is kind of a bad guy as well, if you really think about it, of like how he gets his information, provides his information, and kind of moves to the ethereal moments of time and space of, I think, what is that book called? 4 felonies a day, where we all commit 4 felonies a day or 7 felonies a day. That's Jack, but he's more like 15 felonies a
I
day.
have never heard of this concept or that book, but I'm interested. I'm intrigued by that.
Yeah, everyone commits like 4 felonies a day. So the right time and the right place, they're capable of anything. And I was like, that's so true. Because if you're pressed against the wall, for example, like you say you won't commit murder, but if somebody's coming to attack your child, you're going to be a murderer. There's always
Yeah.
going to be the right time and the right place. And I think people can take that, especially Noah in this position, can take that to a nth degree and continue down the path of just thinking everyone would do this in if they had my sort of power, or if they had the opportunity to. But with that said, he definitely, in my opinion, is not doing things for the best of humanity. But one of my favorite quotes of all
No,
time.
yeah, it's a great quote. Speaking of the sound and the score, did you know about the how this score got put into the film?
No, I don't.
So they had this composer Philip Lambro's original score for Chinatown was rejected at the last minute, so they brought in composer Jerry Goldsmith to save the day, basically. And
Yeah.
it's now considered a classic score, but he basically had 10 days to create this score for this film.
Oh my God. I did look up the composer, and the composer didn't have. He, my Googling skills weren't that great. I didn't know that. That's
Yeah, it's
outstanding.
pretty impressive
10
that
days?
10 days. Yeah, 10 days.
God, he must have been freaking out. He must have been freaking out in those 10 days. Like,
But
you can't, but you got to get laser focused. A lot of stuff can happen.
yeah, I mean, I think the original score was a little bit too kind of like it tried to fit into with like the 1930s music and things like that, and
Um,
it didn't set the tone for what they wanted in the film. So they and that's a ballsy move to change something 10 days before your film is supposed to be released or produced or whatever. That's insane.
I don't know if it's ballsy, but I mean, it worked. It is ballsy as it worked out. If it didn't work out, it's not ballsy. It's poor planning, right? Um,
Yeah.
I have one last question for you. What are your thoughts on slapping women?
Well, I'll play the clip first and then we can talk about it. How about that?
I think you should probably
I'm
answer.
gonna make it easy for you. You were jealous. You had a fight. He fell. He hit his head. It was an accident. But his girl is a witness. So you had to shut her up. You don't have the guts to harm her, but you got the money to keep her mouth shut. Yes or no?
No!
Who is she? And don't give me that crap about your sister because you don't have a sister.
I'll tell you the truth.
Good. What's her name?
Catherine.
Catherine who?
She's my daughter.
I said I want the truth.
Jesus.
She's my sister. She's my daughter. My sister, my daughter.
I said I want the truth.
She's my sister and my daughter.
Wow. That was a very, I mean, intense scene to say the
Jesus
least.
Christ.
Faye Dunaway's performance in this had my hairs on my arms standing up. Like it was that
Let's
good.
just go ahead. I'll answer for you. I don't believe in slapping women, is what Steven's response should have been. Somebody.
Yes, of course. I mean, come on, Jonathan. I
didn't know. I mean,
I'm not dodging the question, but I just wanted to get that clip played first.
Have you seen Sean Connery's clip with Barbara Walters? They're talking about slapping women.
I haven't, but elaborate for me, please. What did he have to say?
Barbara Walters was putting Sean Connery on the spot, saying, "Back in the day, you used to tell others that in the certain instances, you could slap a woman." I was like, "Yes," and she's like, "Do you still believe that?" It's like, "Yes."
Oh my gosh!
Wait, what? It's like, women oftentimes like to get the last word, and if I have said what I needed to say, and she continues to talk and bring it up, then occasionally a slap may merit itself. And she's like, "What is happening? What? Did not think this was going to go this direction."
Well,
Like, what is
first of all, that was an impeccable
it was terrible. Yeah, I know.
performance as Sean Connery, Jonathan. But I will say, yes, violence towards women I do not condone, nor do I condone
Anyone.
slapping anyone for that matter. Yes, but even with your saying before, like when pressed against a wall, anything can happen. But I don't think that.
Just to be clear, I don't support hitting anyone, but for that matter, Faye Dunaway was annoyed by this whole shot after several takes of it messing up, and she got angry and literally told Jack, "Slap me."
Yeah, it was a real slap.
I'm not gonna slap you, and she's like, "You're gonna fucking slap me." And he's like, "I guess I'm gonna slap you," and then actually slapped her, and felt really guilty about it afterwards.
And it's interesting.
And it made it into the movie.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting in this movie, like he's trying all of these clever ways to figure out and uncover the truth, whether it's like at the beginning of the film where he had the pocket watch and he put it under the tire just to figure out when did Mulray drive away his car, and he's getting a con into the old people's home to get more information. But the only way that he can actually get the truth is through this violence towards this person that he's quite fond of, to tell you the truth, but he snaps.
Well, also his back's against the wall at the end. I mean, the police are basically they're coming after him. They want to arrest him. So he has threats above his head for for multiple things. He's about to be arrested, and so therefore he then turns more aggressive and trying to get to the facts of basically trying to provide to keep himself out of jail, which actually saves his life at the end when who knows what was about to happen. But ultimately he was able to get out of the situation, and regrettably though, what it was, to be honest with you, like a weird ending. I know Jack actually in real life was like, this is a bit of a strange ending. I still think it's a bit of a strange ending.
Did it leave you? Did it leave you like wanting more closure or wanting more kind of like?
No, it was the father Noah being like, I don't know, maybe a little too weird for me. Just in the whole situation of like what was happening, like here come, like I don't know, it was like very protective, but in the situation, if you know the relationship, it just seemed odd or misplaced. But if that's the biggest misplacement we can have, then I'll take it. But lastly, I'll leave at the end of the film. I thought it hilarious in the terms of the trivia, but Jake says, "Give me 5 minutes," and so Jack Nicholson's character says, "Give me 5 minutes," to the other policeman, or to the policeman, I should say. And then, strangely enough, which was not planned, there actually were 5 minutes left in the movie, like exactly.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's like, give me 5 minutes, like because the movie's going to be done.
That's great.
Which I found hilarious. But yeah, the music at the end, but the ending, little strange.
It's Chinatown.
People getting murdered, Chinatown coming out and watching everything that happened on the streets. Was a bit strange, but nonetheless, it's still good. Still good. Terrific movie. I mean, it's unbelievable.
You talk a lot about like having the title of the movie in the film. Like this is the last word of the film. It's Chinatown.
Yeah, whatever happens here,
Um,
but unbelievable. I want to make a bigger list of like movies you and I haven't seen, and then if we can find like a source of connection between the two, that'd be awesome. It'd be lovely.
yeah, I mean that's my whole goal with this podcast was to talk to you about movies, but also discover movies that I haven't seen and that you haven't seen, and like kind of pick your brain about it. And this is like one of those like this is a moment where I'm like really excited because like I got to see your reaction after seeing this film, and like it just it's great.
So I think though the beginning of this podcast, I didn't like the idea, and this is where I was telling you, like, I think you've actually sold me on the idea, but I think the idea needs to be refined in that we need to create a greater list and then see if there's a theme that actually can tie the two together. Whereas that's what we did with Wicker Man and Planet of the Apes, but I think there are better options available in the future that could be more exciting. Wicker Man is good, but I think movies we haven't seen and we know the other person's going to like, and also with a theme, that all three of those, that trifecta would be The Shining and
This, yeah,
Chinatown. Yeah.
this
Yeah.
exactly.
It's terrific. It's really fun.
Oh, great. All right, so are we moving on to The Shining?
You don't know Jack?
Are we going to move to The Shining, Jonathan?
I mean,
Yeah, we should.
I guess we are. Have you been there, by the way? In
I
Colorado?
have been to the Stanley Hotel.
Me too.
That was the inspiration for Stephen King writing this movie. And I I really really wish that I had seen the movie before I went to this hotel, because I think I would have gotten a little bit more creeped out by what I was stepping into. But I was like, yeah, I'm in Estes Park. It's in the middle of winter. I just went snowshoeing. Let's go to the Stanley
Let's
Hotel.
go to the maze, guys.
I'm gonna go sit at the bar and have an old fashioned. Like, little did I know.
Wait, did you have a old fashioned?
Oh yeah, I sat at the bar. I had an old fashioned. I was kind of like in the gold room. You know what I mean? But it was something that I didn't appreciate until I watched this film.
Why haven't you watched the film? You said you have your own reasons.
Yeah. So here's the thing, Jonathan. I'm just gonna go out and say it. I was always kind of horror averse. I was never into the movies that are gonna really like fuck with my mind, that are really gonna just like make me have bad dreams. I
Have you seen The Exorcist?
Gosh, probably parts of it, but
Have you seen Blair Witch Project?
yeah, I've seen Blair Witch Project.
Come on.
I've seen a handful of horror movies, and within the past year and a half, I've gone out of my way to watch the quote unquote classics, like John Carpenter's The Thing. I watched Alien for the first time a year ago.
Oh wow!
I know, like these are things that I feel like when I watch it, I was like, why did I put this off? Why did I not watch these movies? But
Alien.
I was really just horror averse, and like The Shining was one of those things. Was like, if I watch this, is this gonna mess me up? Like, like is it?
I am horror averse as well, but I'm definitely not Kubrick averse at all in any way, shape, or form. So therefore, I will watch anything that he puts out, and I also have seen pretty much, I think, all of his movies. But with that said, I think horror by its nature doesn't have the best acting, directing, pretty much everything across the board. There's not, like, except for The Shining, is like The Exorcist also scared the living shit out of me when I watched it in 7th grade, more than any of the movies. Poltergeist, also terrific, also scared me, but nothing really scares me anymore. But The Shining, pretty good.
Yeah, The Shining. We'll get into it here. So this was released in 1980, directed by a guy named Stanley Kubrick. Stars Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, Scatman Crothers, and Danny Lloyd. The box office, it was made for $19 million, and it brought in a hefty $47.3 million. Rotten Tomatoes, 83%. That is today's standard mixed in with some things that came out. But the audience score is a 93%, which is the same audience score that Chinatown got on Rotten Tomatoes. So they're equal on that front. But this was not a very well-received movie by critics when it came out. In fact, it won 2 Razzie Awards. It won the Razzie for Worst Director as well as Worst Actress. Or I think it was nominated. But that nomination for Worst Actress was later rescinded after they found out what Shelley Duvall went through during the production of this movie. This is based on the 1977 Stephen King book by the same name, The Shining. The basic plot, if you haven't seen it, like I didn't, 5 days ago, this is the plot. Jack Torrance accepts a caretaker job at the Overlook Hotel, where he, along with his wife Wendy and their son Danny, must live isolated from the rest of the world for the winter. But they aren't prepared for the madness that lurks within. And boy, are they not prepared. This movie blew my mind.
How
Blew
would
my
you
mind.
deal, do you think, with being alone for a winter with your family? How well would you do in a situation where you're on
Like completely isolated? That's tough because I've done I remember when I was a kid, we moved around a lot. So there was this one summer where my dad got a job transfer in the Air Force. We were supposed to move to Hawaii, and we were living in Nashua, New Hampshire at the time. And that's a long ways away. But what we decided to do was take a road trip all the way from Nashua, New Hampshire, all the way down to Florida and across the USA to Los Angeles. And we did that in one summer. And that's the closest thing that I could get to like being isolated with a family for a few months at a time. But that was like one of the funnest road trips of my life.
So you're saying you would like to be isolated in a large hotel with lots of demons for room 237. Is that what you're saying?
No, I would be getting in the Bobcat and driving away as fast as I could. That's what I would be doing. But
How well would you deal with cannibalization? Do you think you can cannibalize your own family?
there was a movie that came out that dealt with this. It was a true story. I can't remember the name, but I remember watching it as a kid, where these
Alive.
hikers, yeah, Alive. Thank
Yeah.
you. And that movie messed me up because I had really never heard of the term cannibalism, and I watched that movie and I was like, well, it kind of makes sense. Like if you need to survive and this person's dead, like
Are you talking about the plane crash in the Andes?
yeah,
And
Alive.
then they try to yeah. So I read the book recently and watched the movie again recently. That's wild. And that was actually a very short amount of time that they were like displaced. Like
Where they decided, hey, we need to
3 months basically. It was like 3 months, but the situation was absolutely horrendous. But yeah, I don't think I would do well with the cannibalization. I did read a book recently as well about I think it's called The Wager, if memory serves. But basically, like shipwreck and just people eating each other, like no big thing. I'm like, that is pretty much the worst situation I could ever imagine. Like you are like talking about like Chinatown. Just wait. Like you think you're not a cannibal now. Wait until you're on a ship and you're just trying to live. That realization is I don't know how you live after that, but nonetheless, this is like getting into weird zone. I should probably
yeah.
stop
I
this.
mean, this whole The Shining is one of those movies where it's just like, so
What is The Shining, by the way?
The Shining is basically The Shine, which in Stephen King's universe is a form of psychic ability that allows people to communicate with others using the mind. And it gives people the ability to see things that have happened in the past or will happen in the future. So
So
it's an
cool.
ability. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
psychic ability. And Scatman Crothers has it because he sees Danny and immediately calls him Doc. Plays it off, hey, what's up, Doc? But then they have a sit down over ice cream and they kind of explain what The Shining is. And
Yeah.
I mean, the actor that plays Danny, whose also name is Danny, the character Danny Lloyd is the actor. They found him, they cast him because he was like one of the only kids that could like sit still and be, have a concentration for longer than 10 minutes. And
Wow.
they told him the entire time of the film, they didn't tell him it was a horror movie. They said it was just a drama set in a hotel. Because if he knew what was going on, I think
Yeah.
he might have had some nightmares. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. But yeah, The Shining, they get Jack is what they were living in Portland, Maine, and he gets recruited to come to the Overlook Hotel over the winter with his family to be caretakers. And this gives him ample time to write his novel that he's been wanting to write for some time. I think he was like a used car salesman or something like that in his normal
He could
job.
wash cars, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's kind of a loser. But yeah, he gets this job to do the Overlook Hotel, and there's just this passing thing by the general manager of the hotel saying, "Oh, just so you know, in 1970, the past caretaker here went insane and killed his family and chopped him to little pieces with an axe." That
It's like,
that just kind of-
welcome.
welcome.
This-
Yeah,
welcome.
let me give you a tour of the grounds.
The previous guy wouldn't believe it, but they're all dead. Like, but that's like Kubrick move almost. Like the very beginning of the movie is just the whole movie is haunting, and it's done with the mixture of the way he can set via framing and colors, and also just like the trumpeting of sounds like from above head, those helicopter shots, which is funny enough. Kubrick, I don't know if he meant to do this, but there is a shadow of a helicopter in one of those scenes. I was like, that's not very Kubrick-like. But
I didn't catch that. But
the very beginning of the film of just like going through like the ravine and like the car traveling above and
that was beautiful.
Trumpets blaring. It's beautiful, but also like, you know that scene from like in college where you'd have your friends play it, and it had that exact scene basically of a above head shot of a forest, and there's a car driving. I think it was even a station wagon. It's going through its little around the road, and then it travels behind some trees, and then you're just like waiting for it to pop out. And when it does pop out, like a face goes, ah!
Time to face my fear. Wait, it's not loud enough. You can hear the music though, it's so relaxing. No, the video isn't long, so I know what's coming. Oh, nice. God dang!
Ah!
Yeah.
And like,
yeah.
When it happened to us, I remember I was like, I need to show this to every human being I know. That's what I was expecting for basically this entire movie. Like, basically, where is the car going to be jumping out? Where is Jack going to be jumping out? Like, something feels tense. Going into room 237 felt tense. Getting out of room 237 felt tense. Going anywhere felt tense. And then it just escalated to 11 throughout.
That's the whole idea of the movie, and that's what makes it so good, because horror movies, like the one thing that this got knocked for when it came out was, yes, it was a horror movie, but people were used to these fast-paced kind of slasher movies and things like that were coming out that were all the rage. And this was not that. They were like, this is very slow-paced, like what's going on, and people just didn't get it. But Kubrick did. He knew what he was doing. And he doubled down on it. And the fact that, even Stephen King has been very vocal about his distaste for the adaptation, I have a problem with that. And here's my thing. You can write something and it can be yours, but when somebody adapts it, they're making it theirs. And it doesn't need to be a cut for copy, dollars to donuts kind of adaptation. It needs to be the artist that is creating the adaptation to make it their own. What do you feel about this?
I almost always I pretty much will just go always believe in that. Like, if you like, go make it yourself. Go make another Maximum Overdrive. Or I guess at the exact moment that same year it actually came out. That's his directorial debut of the most dog shit.
And it was shit.
hilariously bad, but like almost in a good way. I 1,000,000,000% agree, and there's two debates to be had here. One is a straw man argument, basically saying like, did you like this movie? I love The Shining, but it wasn't like so attuned to the book. Well, like, get the fuck out of here. You're talking about two different things. And
Two
you
different
want to talk.
mediums.
If you want to talk about the movie, you can talk about the movie. You want to talk about the book, you can talk about the book. And if you want to talk about the book and the movie collectively, that's the same. But that's different. But it's not talking about the movie. I think for Stephen King, if he's asked a question like, "How do you think the adaptation went?" and be like, "Oh, not too great." I understand that. I get it. He would do it differently. But if I sold rights to something that I had written, be like, whatever. Like, it is what it is. Like, of course, my idea is going to be different. Of course, what I wrote on paper is going to be different. And of course, you're not that person who did that. So, of course, it's going to be different. Like, what do you want me to say? But I honestly, I haven't read it, so I can't really comment on that aspect to it. But the West Wing style shots of them walking, especially going up the stairs, which they allegedly did like 50 times, or 150 times, which is the greatest number of takes in the history of film, allegedly. I'm sure there have been more than that. But those shots and those long shots, and especially with the shot behind the shoulder of the child, haunting, especially just extremely haunting in the hallways. It's still I can visualize it with the colors and the sound and the little boy just continuing to say red rum, red rum.
And apparently, I mean, we obviously even me like watching that scene, like I knew what red rum was, but that was like not a twist, but that was a surprise for people when they saw it spelled out reverse in the mirror, and they're like, "Oh, he's been saying murder backwards," and that was
Yeah.
a big shock for a lot of people, which I thought was really really cool. But yeah, like talking about creating a sense of place but also feeling very lost. Like, yes, we have that maze outside, but it was also it felt like a maze within the hotel as well, especially like the Steadicam shot, which it was made famous in this movie. This was one of the early films to actually use a Steadicam, and those are those shots where Danny is riding his big wheels through the hallways of the hotel. And before, you couldn't get shots like that. Everything was on a track or a dolly. It couldn't follow that gracefully. And I thought that was just a beautiful way to film it, especially with the patterns of the carpet and everything like that. But just the sense of place and the eeriness, the creepiness of that hotel with the performances involved, just it blew my mind. I do have a few scenes that I do want to play, but the first one is Jack, and this is where we kind of really first see the inclination of the ghost, because when he's going through the tour, they get a tour of the gold room. And the gold room has a bar, and they say, "Oh yeah, we took all the alcohol out of it just for liability purposes, right?"
Yeah.
And that's a good thing for Jack because he's 5 months on the wagon and he's sober and he doesn't really need to be drinking. But in this scene, he basically sells his soul, because right before this, he says, "I would sell my soul for a drink." Here we go.
Hi, Lloyd. A little slow tonight, isn't it?
Yes, it is, Mr. Torrance. What'll it be?
Now, I'm awfully glad you asked me that, Lloyd, because I just happen to have 2 20s and 2 10s right here in my wallet. I was afraid they were going to be there till next April. So here's what. You slip me a bottle of bourbon, a little glass, and some ice. You can do that, can't you, Lloyd? You're not too busy, are you?
No, sir. I'm not busy at all.
Good man. You set him up and I'll knock him back, Lloyd. One by one. White man's burden, Lloyd, my man. White man's burden. Say, Lloyd, It seems I'm temporarily late. How's my credit in this joint, anyway?
Your credit's fine, Mr. Torrance.
That's swell. I like you, Lloyd. I always liked you. You were always the best of them. Best goddamn bartender from Timbuktu to Portland, Maine. Or Portland, Oregon, for that matter.
Thank you for saying so.
Here's to 5 miserable months on the wagon and all the irreparable harm that it's caused me.
Oh, wow.
I love that scene.
It's such a good scene.
Do you think Lloyd was, to get into it, I have debated countless times, and I think that's kind of like the cool thing about this movie, and I still don't even know, to be fair. Is the place haunted, or are the people that go there haunted to begin with, or is there a 5th, 6th, 7th option?
That's the thing about this film is there's so many avenues and ideas that you can glean and take and believe, for that matter. Is Lloyd a ghost? Is Lloyd the devil, and he's giving him that drink to sell his soul, and now after that all just shit breaks loose in the hotel? Where does that go? Saying the white man's burden. We get the idea that this Overlook Hotel was built on an Indian burial site, and the Native Americans, and what does that exchange mean in the context of this film? And there's even a really great documentary, I guess, great in quotation marks, called Room 237, where these people, these scholars, these very intelligent people have come up with these theories, conspiracy theories or substantial theories based on this movie about what certain elements mean in the film. And whether that's Stanley Kubrick putting in elements about the fake moon landing of Apollo 11, or the Native Americans, or somebody even has a theory that this movie is about the Holocaust. Like, there are all these like different layers and themes that people put onto this movie because there is that ambiguity there, and I think that's great.
It's great. I try not to get too down the rabbit hole of like what I think is actually trying to be conveyed. Because, of course, just as we were saying before, you write something, you sell it, you leave it alone. Your evaluation of that creation, it doesn't really do any good. You can't change the fact that like who's involved or who's going to be producing your work. And that also, essence, like I like it more open for interpretation. And I still haven't yet to figure it out. Like, I oftentimes think, it's not really the place. I consistently think it's not really the place that is there, but I think it's just hell on Earth to some extent, and they're all in their own personal hell. I have actually seen half of Room 237. Pretty dense. It's been many, many years since I've seen the first half of it, but I'm not convinced, of course, but I think it's like their own personal hell is intertwined. And although they can still, they have a lot of shared psychosis. For example, the woman in Room 237 exists for the boy. It also exists for his father. And, but we don't see how it exists for the boy. And so maybe it's the same, maybe it's different. Who knows? But she's definitely violent. With that said, but I do think it feels like their own personal hell, and their inadequacies or insecurities are just bare for the taking.
And I think that Kubrick is a genius, and he knows how to leave these breadcrumbs, but not always leading you to the treasure. And that's what I love about this filmmaking, that he gives us some answers, but like also in a haunted world, in the quote unquote ghost world, logic doesn't have to make sense, because that doesn't make sense in that world. And us trying to make sense of that logic only propels us forward into this illogical realm, which I think Kubrick was well aware of.
That's a great way to put it, and a more eloquent way to decipher what I just said. But that is quintessentially what's happening because, I mean, for example, if there's nobody there, then why is there an entire room, a ball happening basically? And like, why is there a bartender, for example? So all of this clearly doesn't make sense. And is it in Jack's head? Who knows? Is it in any of their heads? Who knows? Is it collectively in their heads? Who knows? And who cares when it comes down to it? And just kind of follow the process and see what happens.
Yeah.
Which Kubrick is best at.
Kubrick is also best at, as you said before, taking a lot of takes.
Yeah.
Like you said, 150 takes up that scene of the stairs. I'm going to play that scene real quick if you don't mind.
Yeah, I would love it.
You've had your whole fucking life to think things over. What good's a few minutes more gonna do you now?
Stay away from me. Please. Don't hurt me.
I'm not gonna hurt you.
Stay away from me.
Wendy,
Stay away.
darling, light of my life. I'm not gonna hurt you. You didn't let me finish my sentence. I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains in. I'm gonna bash them right the fuck in.
Stay away from me. Don't hurt me.
And
Wow.
then I'm going to cut you into little pieces.
Yes. So from what I heard and what I read about his Kubrick's process is he is willing to whittle his actors away to their very, very core where they don't have anything left them in anymore to just keep digging and digging for what he wants to get out of them. And they get exhausted, they get tired, and they throw their hands up and like, I don't know what you want me to do. And it's like, just give me more. And that's what they get out of. And you're asking Jack Nicholson to give you more. He's going to give you more.
Yeah. Yeah. He was so exhausted. Everyone actually, not only just Jack, everyone was thoroughly exhausted. They would do 14-hour days and literally go back to where they needed to sleep and just pass out on their clothes. Like that.
Did you know this film was actually filmed in chronological order of the movie, which it never happens. But he was like, this is because I want them to,
because of Kubrick,
descend into this kind of madness as I take them through this process of making this film.
Yeah.
And boy, they sure did. Incredible. I we got to talk about Shelley Duvall. She got a lot of
who was not like she was like third, fourth, fifth in line. I mean, if that. So there was a lot of people that actually were in front of her, including people that Stephen King thought should be there. But there was a lot of debates. But she provided, because the character, according to Stephen King, was supposed to be this strong, like former cheerleader. And Shelley Duvall she's flawed, and she's insecure, and she's very unsure of herself. So, but I think it makes for a much better movie with her involved. And boy, did she go through a lot.
The terror that she put on film, I've never experienced somebody with that much fright in their expression, and not in an overacting hammy way. Like, it was like genuine fright, and that's what the film needed. So it was great. But yeah, light of my life. Jack just he nailed it. Have you ever had writer's block, Jonathan?
Yeah, I don't believe in writer's block, but Jack, to go back to Shelley, Jack actually said even to this day, like her performance, she went through more than any actress or actor he's ever seen on a film. It was pretty much one of the best performances I've ever seen. I don't believe in writer's block. I don't think it exists. I just think that you probably should just go take a walk. I think oftentimes when you try to write as a writer myself, if you're not able to write because you can't understand it, the hardest thing for writer's block is, like Stephen Pressfield said it in The War of Art, not the Art of War. He basically said everyone has writer's block if you really were to qualify it, if you will. But it's just the fact you're insecure. You don't know what you're going to write. You don't know how it's going to come out. And so you think the motivation is just going to dawn on you like a light bulb, and that everything's going to flow through you. For example, when I go out and running, I come up with an idea, I'll stop immediately right there. There's one of my ideas. But he says, sit down, just sit your ass down and write. don't even need to think about what you're writing. Just write, and eventually you'll get to where you need to be. So I think writer's block is like, maybe you're anticipating writing 10 pages in one day. I don't think you should have that idea. I think writer's block is more of just, you need to force yourself to sit down. You need to force yourself to write. And eventually, maybe you won't use all of that, but you will use some. And that's, at least that's the way I present writer's block. I don't believe in it.
Do you think Jack Torrance's character did he believe that he was writing a novel? And that's what
Another
came out?
one. Another one I don't know. I think they're on their own personal hell, which would allow me to say, like, he doesn't have writer's block. He's just writing, but he's in his own personal hell. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. I think, and also that his Kubrick's secretary for months had to type, because like if you actually go through it, it's like a typewriter actually wrote all that, like that line
in different formats too, and like
thousands
stanzas,
like a poetry.
Poem.
Yeah. So literally her job for months was to write those lines. Now imagine her life. Be like, dude, Kubrick is fucking insane. What is wrong with this man? I'm literally doing this like for him. Like, she had to have thought, I would have thought that, because data entry, I don't know if you've ever done data entry, it's mind-numbingly dull. And if you're doing the same line over and over, that's tough. But what, as Shelley is like filtering through the pages and realizing like the totality of what's happening here, he's lost his brain, and like Jack shows up soon after. That moment is like, I pause, like breaking the fourth wall almost of my own self, of like watching the movie and be like, holy shit, who actually got the time to write all this? That seems like an annoying task, like whoever that might have been, the secretary. But the feeling that that moment put in me was like, is haunting and eerie. Like, oh wow, some shit's about to go down. Something's about to go down. Yeah.
Scatman Crothers. I gotta talk about his character, Dick.
Yeah.
First off, I love the artwork on his walls at his home. Thought that was very, very Kubrick's idea of putting these naked women on each side of the room. It kind of gives you a sense of this bachelor. But anyways, you as a viewer, you're thinking this whole time like, okay, he's down in Florida, but he feels this presence of the shine through Danny, and he knows that there's something wrong, and we follow him in these scenes. He's going to Denver. He's making the flight. He's bearing the elements. He's getting a bobcat. He's going all the way there, and Kubrick just disposes of him, like in the script, like it's nothing. And I think that's intentional, obviously.
Yeah.
And it makes you as the viewer think like, this is the person that was supposed to save the situation, and it's the only person that Jack kills in the movie. But he's just disposed of so quickly.
I don't know if this was the same feeling that you had. I actually thought it was hysterical in that whole scene, because before that actually happened, the voices in Jack's head was basically, you can't do this. You can't kill your wife. We
can't correct her.
Yeah. It's like,
they needed to be corrected.
You said you were going to kill your family, and the voices are saying this. You said you're going to kill your family. Come on, you pussy. Like, what are you doing? Like, you haven't killed your family yet. Are you actually going to do it? Our voices, we got together. We're talking about you, and boy, I don't think you're going to have the balls to kill your family. And then he's like, yeah? Oh, yeah? We'll see about that. And then gets locked into a pantry by his own wife. Has to get out of there. The voice then saying like, yeah, you're not going to do this. Like, once I get out of here, I will. And then he gets out and then immediately kills him. But I thought I don't know. When things start to go real south, I find, I don't know if it's enjoyment, but hilarity in the moments where, because he clearly still can't kill his family. And then he so easily kills, like one little stab and that's it. And he's done. It's like, you can't do that to your wife? What's going on? Tell the voices to go away.
I was looking up the American Film Institute. They put out a list of the 100 greatest heroes and villains of film history. And I was looking at this list and I was kind of thinking like, where would Jack Torrance be? Blah blah blah. And you know what? Both of our villains in each of these movies are in the top 25.
Wow.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
would be
So
number one for biggest villain?
I want you to guess because I'm looking at the list right now, and I have the top 5 looking at them right now. See if you can guess any of them.
Man, I think the Dark Knight is a pretty fantastic villain that, in terms of performance, would be one of the greatest.
Like Bane? Are you talking about Bane?
No.
Oh, the Joker.
Joker. Yeah, that would be a terrific one. I think
he's on there somewhere, but I don't see it right here. No. I'm looking at the website right now. Jack Nicholson's Joker is
Wicked
number
Witch
45.
of the West.
She's top that's number 4.
Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, the timing of that was in 1937.
1939. Yeah.
39.
Good job.
That for that is like, I was wrong. It was, probably scary for that time. I'm gonna have to think about this more deeply, but Psycho.
I'll give you the top. Psycho's number 2, Norman Bates.
Yeah, that would be pretty fucking scary, to be honest with you. And what's her name? Shane from The Exorcist? But she wasn't really like she's just a character. She's not like
she's number 9, Regan McNeil. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just thinking
the number 1 is a doctor.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Oh my god. A doctor.
Yeah.
I don't know. The first thing that comes to my mind is The Audition, the Japanese movie.
Silence of the Lambs.
Really?
Dr. Hannibal Lecter, number 1. 2 was Norman Bates. 3 was Darth Vader. You got 4 with Wicked Witch. And the number 5 was Nurse Ratched. So
I think... Yeah, I mean, I guess this isn't my list, so I shouldn't be able to critique it.
It's not your list, yeah.
It's, yeah.
But Noah Cross was number 16, and Jack Torrance was number 25.
Interesting. I would say, yeah. I mean, my list would be different.
Everybody's list is different, but that's kind of like it's fun to pick and prod and kind of see what they're talking about. So
speaking of prodding, how well do you deal with an axe? Are you able to chop wood, carry water?
These things have started to pop over the past like 5 or 10 years of like these bars where you can, not bars, but like these places where I think they serve drinks, which I think is kind of messed up, but where you can throw axes, and it's like a shooting range, but you throw axes instead. I've never done it, nor have I had the inclination to do so. But yeah, whatever. I'm not well versed in using axes. No. What about you?
There is one in my town, and we actually had our daughter's fourth birthday there.
It's a strange place to have a birthday.
A trampoline. Well, they have a trampoline park with games, and then pizza parties where you can have your own special room. But with that said, they also have a bar. Directly outside of the bar is an axe throwing 2 full lanes outside the bar. You literally, I could touch the bar, grab my drink, and then touch the axe throwing thing this far away, 6 feet.
I don't think those things should mix. Just
that closely. Based on what or you just like, I don't know. But yeah, I anyway. So the point is this: Jack actually was a volunteer fire marshal in real life, and he was presented with a door originally, and would just destroy the door of the scene of him trying to get to his wife and child. Child had slid down to go to the maze, and the wife, in a very, very tense scene, I thought she was going to get chopped up the first time I watched it, while hanging out the window, and the son's going to be watching. That didn't happen, but he chopped through the door too quickly. So they had to make him like a more robust door, which I actually think did well because he looked like he was having a bit of trouble opening that with that axe. But well done. And also, by the way, that the "Here's Johnny" line was improvised. I did not know that. I had no idea.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I had no idea it was improvised, which is just so scary.
It's one of the most iconic images and lines of all time. So
yeah.
Yeah, wow. This movie and the ending with the The him chasing down Danny in the maze and him, you know, Danny, and by the end of it, he's just making noises. He's just kind of becoming this like this animal. Just incredible.
It's lovely. It's literally it's Jack Nicholson is a doll, and I will end it with this. In terms of him making strange noises, and I think I probably should have done this earlier, but I love Hunter S. Thompson. He's tattooed on my arm. He is my favorite American author of all time, and I just adore him. Or adored. He's no longer here, but still read him fairly consistently, and still follow pretty much everything he does or has done. But with that said, Jack and in real life, Hunter S. Thompson actually had a very special relationship. He had a house, Jack did, in Colorado, and Woody Creek was Hunter's established place of residence for a long period of time. And so basically right down the street, Hunter was living from Jack and his family, who would often spend some time there. And Hunter is a night owl, very prolific night owl, would call his friends such as John Cusack and Colonel Depp, Johnny Depp, and all the sundry of his friends like Ralph Steadman would call him. And, you know, if you pick up at like 12 to 2 a.m., he would have like the most lavish story that he's basically either working on, and he's probably coked up and on an LSD or something like that. But it was just talk people's ears off. And so he calls Jack, doesn't pick up, was like, I'm just going to go over there. And Hunter had just gone hunting for elk and had an elk heart that he was going to deliver as a prank to Jack's house. And was like, this seems funny. I can't remember the exact time, but it was like, just imagine like 12 or 1 a.m. And Hunter rolls up to Jack's house with this elk heart, which I don't know if you know the size of an elk heart, but like we're talking like it's massive. And he puts it into a cooler on ice. So I imagine his hands are bloody when handing it off as well, and decides that he's going to take his car, I think a truck, and blast the loudest music imaginable while his spotlights are on the house. And then he rings the doorbell when puts an elk heart, just waits. And so I guess
wow,
the story goes, Jack had some like, I'm a famous person, somebody is coming to attack me mentality. Also, my family, my whole extended family is here. Jack's extended family is here, and this is happening. Good thing he was wise enough that he actually took his family to their safe place in the basement, where they actually locked themselves for the next like 14 or 15 hours.
Wow.
And did not come out. And in the meantime, Hunter was like, oh, this is a bit strange. Actually went home, started calling him, and actually I think traveled the next day and was like, oh, I'm really sorry. Like, that was me, actually, by the way. And like, that was fucking you. I was down here 15 hours. We thought like somebody was murdering us. There's the elk heart on their like driveway. Like, what do you think? How would you even think this is a reasonable approach? It is literally, from all the reading I've done with Hunter, I think it is his greatest regret in life, which is hilarious that would be his major regret, including like all the things that he's like fucked up.
That he pranked like, Jack with the elk heart. That's his biggest
regret, because he legitimately felt terrible about it, like because his family was involved. I think Hunter probably wouldn't feel too bad if his family wasn't involved.
That's true, yeah.
But what a terrible story. I mean, could you imagine that? Just freaking out. And he didn't have a phone in the basement. He didn't. His phone. There was no phone, so he like couldn't call him, and he had to like traipse out of his basement dwelling after 15 hours with his family. Oh my god!
Hopefully they had snacks.
Yeah,
maybe a good internet connection.
This is pre-internet, I believe.
Yeah, I believe that too. Another funny story with Jack and all these crazy takes that Stanley was making him do. I forget the scene in which it was involved, but like Kubrick wasn't getting what he wanted out of Jack, and Jack just kind of like, he had tickets to a Lakers game, and he basically like was like tired of doing all these takes, and he just did one like insane crazy take, and Cooper was like, got it, and then Jack just immediately went to the Lakers game because he wanted to catch it. I think that was your opening too, was about the Lakers, right? So that's what we were tying into.
Well, Jack Nicholson is quintessentially the greatest Lakers fan of all time.
Yeah, he's like what Spike Lee is to the Knicks. He's to the Lakers.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And but I did know about that, and it did not go over well with old Stanley. He was not
No, he
appreciative
wasn't
of that
happy.
moment. Yeah, but yeah, unbelievable set of films this week. I mean, I really think if you haven't seen either of these flicks, go and watch them immediately. Chinatown, probably the top 10 best mystery films ever. And I think it could easily be on a top 10 list of films ever as well. I think
I got
The
another.
Shining. What, hit me. What do you got?
Well, just I forgot because I wanted to mention this, but I didn't during Chinatown. There's a whole mystery about Los Angeles's short supply of water and things like that. That's a
Yep.
whole another couple layers of the onion. But I do have a story. When I lived in Los Angeles, you are in a desert, and even to this day, they are very cautious about their water. And I was working at a nice restaurant in Santa Monica. Who would we get our fair share of celebrities in and things like that? And we weren't supposed to do this, but I guess some of our servers were. They were going around with a watercraft and just filling people's water up individually without the guest asking. And I was walking around the dining room, kind of making my laps, and Don Cheadle was there. He was sitting at a table, and he stopped me, and he's like, "Can I talk to you? Are you the manager?" I was like, "Yes, I am, Don Cheadle. What can I do for you?" And he's like, "I really think you need to tell your staff to only pour water when it's requested because we are in a drought, and I think that would be very, very wise of you." And I go, "You are absolutely right, Don Cheadle. I will do that." And I did. I made that a focus point. So even to this day, LA's water is being allocated by
Don Cheadle.
us. Don Cheadle, yeah.
That's a great story.
So,
oh my God. All right, let's get to some rankings here. How about that?
Sure thing, Bob.
By the way, next week's episode, if you're so inclined and you've made it this far, we are going to delve into and probably we have to get approval from this man's place of business, but we are going to, I'm going to actually cross out your score so I don't see it. There we go. We are actually going to go into another set of movies that we have actually seen before, and we're not providing it to each other, but one in which should be a hotly debated topic, and one guest whose favorite movie is, in character, I should say, in the DC world and or the Marvel world is Batman. And so we have hotly debated which two we're going to choose. And so we are actually going to debate next week on episode 13 Batman, Tim Burton's Batman versus Batman Begins. And I'm very
it's our first guest, right? We're going to have our first guest on the pod.
First guest in the pod. He will be live. We'll be shooting this from St. Thomas, where Stephen will not be. We will be at a wedding. So I wanted to take this time, and hopefully our microphones will work. But nonetheless, I have a backup mic if they do not, and we will make it work. But nonetheless, be excited for next week. I am. So what do we got? Chinatown. Again, both movies are just so highly ranked in my view. Performance from Jack was just impeccable. On both movies, I would say, like, he just really took me for a ride. But I gave it a actually, yeah, I'm going to stick with this. Performance was a 95. I mean, it was just one of the best things I've ever seen.
It was breathless, man. It was just so, he had the swagger of that private detective. He carried the film, like you said. He was in every freaking scene. Like, what? It's just amazing. A performance. I gave it a 90.
Yeah. Quote. So many quotes throughout both movies. More on the harrowing side on The Shining, but I gave it a 90. I really like the basically, you leave somebody to their own devices. You think you won't do these things, but eventually, or potentially with the right situation, you will. And I agree with it. But I give it a 90.
Yeah, quotes. That was right up there with mine too. I also like the exchange when he was getting in the elevator, talking to the big burly guy that's he's kind of dim-witted, and he's like, "What do you know about water? You don't drink it. You don't bathe in it." Like, it's just very, very just these little digs that he can do was great. But what about score? Oh, I gave it a 90 for
Got it.
best quote.
Mine too. Score great. I love the attribution of and the matching of film feeling and as I always do, film feeling and the cinematography. But I gave that an 85. That was probably the poorest of any of the items I had here, but an 85.
Yeah, I gave it higher because of what Jerry Goldsmith had to do
I
in
didn't know that.
that short time frame, and I gave it a 95. It was an amazing score, and the fact that it was like an all time classic in that pressure, just incredible.
Yeah, I probably would have given it higher, but I'm not going to let the can't rehash it now. Best editing, I gave it a 90. I just thought it was terrific, but I mean, I shouldn't be comparing it to the editing of The Shining, which I thought was equally done. But I did like the different scenes, the mise-en-scene of Polanski over The Shining or Kubrick's The Shining, because I just felt like it was so smooth. Whereas The Shining, sometimes it's like kind of Wes Anderson feel, where it's like so
Very very constructed.
Yeah, constructed is a better way to put it, and like too thought out. Whereas the editing of Chinatown just felt like you're following the dude around, and you were effectively,
Yeah,
you were. But
yeah.
the shots that were chosen, yes, Scorsese would do this well. I think I agree, but I gave that a 90.
I also like the fact that with Chinatown, you don't get too much of anything that's happening in Los Angeles. You're always on kind of the outskirts of the city, which kind of tie into the themes of the film. Of he's on the outside looking in and trying to figure that out. But anyways, I digress. I gave the editing an 85.
You're on the outskirts of society, though. These individuals who are all here, they're on the outskirts of society, or at least
Yeah.
the individuals morally who are certainly on the outskirts of society. The screenplay, I mean, there's really, it's up there with the top of the top. So I gave it a 95. It's just it flows like water when you have lots of it from the dam. It's beautiful.
It's one of the best screenplays of all time. I gave it a 95. It's it's impeachable. It's impeccable. It's Chinatown.
Impeachable and impeccable. The directing, I gave it a 90. Polanski is terrific. I love Polanski. Like Carnage, for example, another one that's just like absolutely terrific. I've actually never seen Rosemary's Baby.
That's one too that's been on my radar, but never seen. So
another
yeah.
horror, potential there. I stay away
exactly.
from that, but yeah, 92 overall for me. What did you have? I can't see yours.
For directing, I had a 90, so it was a 91 overall for me.
Very similar. Yeah, so 92, 91.
Yeah. All right, let's get into The Shining. I got to be honest with you, Jonathan. This movie affected me.
It should have.
And in a lot of ways that I haven't felt in a movie. And that's why, like, another reason, like we kind of talked last week, like another reason why I haven't seen The Shining is because like I want to savor these kind of things and not just like indulge in every piece of filmmaking that Kubrick's done, which I haven't seen some of his earlier works. Like I've seen Ben-Hur, but like these newer ones, like this is kind of like the cusp of like, now I've seen it all. And the performance that he gets out of these characters, I gave it 100.
That's terrific. I think I'm going overall. I think the main characters, the three, were terrific, but I think there was definitely some characters that were not as good. So I gave it a 90 for that reason.
Yeah,
but if I'm choosing the three main characters, yeah, it's like 120.
Best quote, again, it's tough to pick. Like you can have the "Here's Johnny" line, but this I just always go back to the scene where he's like, light of my life, like we played earlier, and I just want to bash your brains in. Like it's just so creepy, but so powerful. I gave it 100.
I gave it a 95. The same scene you're talking about, but a different line is actually where he was like, "You've spent your entire life. What's another few moments going to do for you? Like nothing. What are we doing?
Nothing.
You're not going to change anything." That is so telling of, and you could use that line not in like a creepy sense, but also in the sense of like, you think you're going to do something different with your life? Yeah. Well, you haven't. Go do it. But you're not going to. Like that type of mentality. It's so true. And I, I'm not killing people, but like that hits home if you would apply it in different ways. But 95.
Yeah. Best score, haunting score. I was actually listening to. I do this a lot where I listen to the score and I just put it on the background noise while I'm doing like laundry or dishes or something like that. And this score, like I had to kind of turn it off because it was like, whoa, it's very creepy. A lot of horns, but I give it a 95.
I gave it a 95 as well. It just the trumpets and the feeling it evoke. It's just I love Kubrick and his use of sound. 95.
Editing. I like the structure of this film. I like how it's edited in a beautiful way to get you give you that sense of haunting and dread, and the pacing of it. Yes, it is slow, but it's meant to be slow.
Yeah.
So I gave it a 95.
Gave it a 90. I also gave screenplay and writing a 90. But the editing itself, I thought was terrific. It was great.
Yeah.
I thought
screenplay.
It matches well with his desired mood and escalation of that mood.
Not finally, but screenplay writing, 85. Like I said, he took an adaptation. So it's not an original work, but he made it kind of his own original work. I gave it 85.
Yeah. And directing. Last but not least.
95. Near perfect.
Same. It's just like I don't know. It still sits with me as well. It's creepy to say the least, but nonetheless. So what are we working with? It looks like 91. I mean, terrific scores. 91.5 for Chinatown overall, and 93.5 for The Shining, which I think actually is the highest rated movie we have so far. Nope.
No, Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap. That's right. Look at that.
It's the apex mountain right there. Can't beat it.
It's going to be tough. What movie do you think there's going to be movies along the way that beat Spinal Tap? But nonetheless, I mean, if every week we could have this sort of, although the two movies collectively were a lot to deal with, I would say emotionally, there's a lot going on. It wasn't like watching Con Air and The Rock in 2 week period for which you're just like, like you could look up trivia after and like just talk about it. But this is like more deeply affecting, which I wouldn't want to do every week. But nonetheless, Batman and Batman Begins should actually be a terrific segue. Getting away from terrible.
And I get to see another great Jack performance, so it's it all comes full circle here.
Back-to-back weeks, just Jack. We're gonna know. We're definitely gonna know Jack after this.
That's true. That's true. I had fun. This is good.